They aren't at a cognitive level to comprehend that. So what do? They see all this attention that the little girl's getting. They see all the toys that the little girl is being plays with, and then all the adults are playing with these things. And suddenly that's what they want to do. Why? Because that's what she's getting all the attention by being this way. This is how our mental, emotional programs get created in our young life. These are the little micro traumas that happen in our everyday existence, that because we are not awakened enough as a collective, we don't understand that's what's happening. So to handle that is, you would let that little boy know, oh, it's okay if you play with these, but you don't have to get my love. You can play with anything that you want. And what's really critical is you don't give them more attention because they play with certain toys. That's feeding into, I have to be like her to be loved. That's where those programs start. I have to be like that to get the love. And that's just one example out of hundreds that I could give them, how all these programs get created mentally, emotionally.
Well, sure. And on top of this, what's really standing out to me is something you were talking about earlier. When I was asking you about how, or like, why are we set up in this system with like the medical institution, we're not truly healing. That kid, it seems to me that we've placed, the gender identity in the hands of surgeons, in the hands of maybe pediatrics, who may not be qualified as a psychologist, or my assumption is that psychologists aren't doing that great of a job either. They're not very well trained in this either.
No.
Generally speaking, I'm sure there's some good ones out there. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're a good one. But the point of that, me bringing this up, is like, in that story that you just laid out, like, I can see clear as day, okay, like if he starts, that's why he would start doing that.
Yes.
However, even if you're in that medical community, even if you have that training, now you have the level of, well, we can't make money. They're not going to pay thousands of dollars for a sex change operation, because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't get paid for.
You got it.
And I think it was unfortunate that I read an article that showed that, sex change operations, the gender, hormones, all of these are on the rise, and it's going to be a very lucrative medical business to get into.
Yep.
And whenever I saw that article that said this is on the rise, it's like, first of all, is there something that's physiologically going on? Like, are we, I know there's a whole bunch of conversation about fluoride that's in the water. Is that contributing to this? Is there like actual biometrical? I don't even think that's a word. Someone put that in Webster for me if that isn't a word. But is there some sort of like environmental thing that's going on that's creating our actual estrogen or testosterone levels to be different? And then on top of that, how much of this is just a mental, issue? Because I think ties into school, ties into shootings as well. It's like, is it really the gun, or do we just have a huge mental crisis on our hands and nobody's talking about it?
Yep, that's exactly it. And I think to answer your question, I think there's a combination of things going on, but I can also tell you, how do you treat it? For example, is you don't give medical intervention that young. Period, end. Because even if I am a person who, I'm transgendered, I really have, to whatever degree, I don't care if it's biological, it doesn't matter. If I'm a young person and that is me, then what do I need to be taught, educated in, and supported on my path as I grow older? To love myself, period, end. How to become divinely powerful. This is critical when we feel like an outcast, or we don't feel accepted, or if we feel different. Part of, and I'm going to segue for a moment, because this is important for people to understand. In our coaching programs at Masters of Self University, one of the parts that people learn to do, they become what I call the mystical parent. And that means when they're doing inner child work, they don't coddle their inner child. They don't keep them powerless. They don't say, you're only going to heal if I'm here. You go energetically to that aspect of you that is scared, that is hurt, that doesn't feel validated, that is dismissed, that is lonely, that is whatever it is that's there, that we've uncovered that wound, right? You go to that aspect of you and you teach that child the energetic connection to their divine power. It's the way of connection. It's a process to learn energetically how to do this. That's what we teach. You go to that child, you teach them how to connect to their power, and then they alchemize all the shit, all the pain, all the fear, all the not feeling validated, not feeling good enough, not loving them. All of that gets alchemized, the more powerful they become. All of a sudden, you have this divinely enlightened, incredibly powerful child who is more powerful than any adult walking on the street. And suddenly they're completely healed from all of it. Now, if we taught that to children as not going back, not the inner child, if we knew how to teach that to children in the world right now as they were moving through their childhoods, it wouldn't matter, quote unquote, what they are. They would love themselves no matter what. And then from a place of love and from a place of divine power, if they wanted to change aspects of them when they were older, they would do it from a place of divine power and from a place of divine love and self-acceptance. I just prefer to be this over that. So I'm going to take the steps now because I love myself enough to do that. I'm not doing it because I hate who I am and I hate myself and I hate what I was born into. That's the difference. You learn to fall in love with every aspect of you, to embrace it, to treat it with the way of compassion, with the way of harmlessness and gentleness, because that is really missing here on our planet. That's one of the ways of oneness, harmlessness and gentleness. You learn how to become those things vibrationally, energetically. You function at that frequency and you bring that to your pain, to your sorrow, to your, I don't accept myself and I judge myself. You heal it all and you fall completely madly in love with who and what you are. And from there, if you choose to then be different, because it's okay to have preferences and you want to change something then, that's when you're doing it from a place of power and love. And that's when I support it 100%. Anything other than that, you're coming from fucking dysfunction and you need healing, period, end.
And this seems like a good way to segue back into what we were talking earlier about mental health diseases, because I wanted to get back to that at some point, and this feels like a perfect moment for it. So based on, the credentials, let's say, that you've gone through, I feel like you're more than qualified to discuss the idea of there's no such thing as mental disorder. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but can you at least help me understand how there isn't? Because like my mind's trying to think of,
there
well, if
is
there's like different circuits. Okay, let's start
there
there. Can
is
you help me unpack this again?
there is but it starts with a program, a mental program, an emotional program, a belief set, all of that. Those are all programs. It's created often when we're very young, little tiny micro traumas. And those seeds get in there. Energy never dies. So we have to backtrack and understand. A mental program, a belief, an emotion, they are nothing but energetic programs that are connected to you, influencing your behaviors, your functioning in everyday life, your view of the world, your perspective, your reactions to things. Those are behavioral programs. They all come from, they're just energetic programs running in a part of who you are. Now, the more of them you have, the longer they go without being healed, the more intense they get, the more ingrained they become, and the more they become who you are. Okay? So if you understand the truth in that that's where they come from and that's how it gets created. So depression is very real. They're real. These things are real, except it isn't the truth of what you are. It is what you are energetically experiencing as you for now. That's the difference. It isn't the truth of what you are. Your soul is not depressed. Your soul does not have PTSD. The human you does. The human you is experiencing these energies that got programmed in there and have taken over, that you have no control over them. Okay? So if you understand that, and that's all our coaching programs, that's where we start. You understand this step by step, And then while you're learning this step by step, well, then what programs are running and how did they get activated and where did they come from? You learn all of that because if you understand it, it is so much easier to shift into compassion and become the ways of oneness, to just alchemize them and have them dissolve and not be a part of who you are. They're just energy. Energy never dies. If you leave the energy as it is, it's going to stay in that form for the rest of your life. Period, end. Or you're going to keep fueling it and intensifying it and making it worse. If you realize what it is on an energetic level, all the different programs that are creating your symptoms, for example, you can go into the energy because you learn to work with energetics in our coaching programs. You work literally with the energies themselves, not outside of you, not as separate than you. You embrace them in oneness and you learn the process energetically how to do that. You embrace them in oneness, but who's the one embracing them in oneness? The powerful divine you. That powerful divine energy that is a much higher vibrational frequency can embrace and pull in the lower frequencies of anxiety or PTSD or panic or depression or whatever it might be, suicidal thought, you name it. You pull it in with the power that you are and you learn the process how to do that. And then it alchemizes. And all of a sudden, holy crap, it's gone. Yeah. But gone. Yeah. And that's it. And you do that, and then you'll heal layers at a time. And then life will show you whatever layers are left in there. And oh, I'm starting to feel the panic come up. Great. Now you know what to do with it. Just alchemize it in real time. Once you learn how to do it, it isn't hard. It is incredibly freeing. You learn how powerful you actually are because you've experienced the power energetically. It's not a concept anymore. You feel the success in it because you've achieved this. And then the more you do that, you're like, holy shit, I can heal like anything. I just have to be willing to learn how and to get good at it. It takes practice. You don't go to NFL at 8 years old. You learn, you hone the skill, and you're like, oh my God, I've gotten so good at this. It doesn't matter what comes my way. I just alchemize it in real time. There you go. That's mastering yourself.
A big piece of that seems to be this labeling identification with a certain mental situation or a certain energetic frequency. And because to even back up from this, I know recently I've came to this recognition of to even move away from labels in regards to emotions that I was feeling and to just start doing kind of what you're doing, is saying like, this is just energy. I feel anxious. I feel depressed. It's like, this is energy and I can use this energy and fuel my work with it. I can energize my day with it. Even if it is the classical definition of anxiety or depression, it's like, no, this is just energy. You can use this. And it seems like stepping back from those labels in a way can be helpful, especially when it comes to like mental diseases that you're discussing here, because it seems, and this is just kind of what I picked up from your answer, is that classically someone goes into the doctor's office, they tell them their symptoms, and they say, okay, you have bipolar disorder. Here's the treatment, not the cure. Here's the treatment for that. So now you have associated yourself with this label and have been told by someone you recognize as being in a position of authority that this is who you are now, and that this is not going to change, and that this is the way things will be for the rest of your life. And so we need to find a way to step back from that being our reality. How do we do that?
You go through the programs we offer at Masters of Self University. That's the easy answer. I'm serious because we teach it step by step. I'm being so serious. I wish to God I could take every physician and medical personnel in our Western medicine and make them go through our programs to awaken them to a higher level of consciousness. And I wish I could, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd do that. Because again, they've been educated with a certain type of education. They don't have an expansive education in working with energies. They've never been taught that as physicians. They have no idea. And so when somebody goes in, so there's two parts to this. On one hand, we over label and we lump in, and then that becomes your identity. And energetically, you're now locking that in. So yes, terrible. We don't want to do that. From another perspective, for lack of a better way to say it, there is an importance in the way that I teach and coach and elevate people. There is an importance to go through a phase of having the ability to identify accurately the energies that are coming up. Why? Because they're always connected to a root cause. So you start with, you're literally learning how to discern subtle energies. You're becoming like this little energy master, so to speak, because you're learning, oh, well, this emotion is coming up. Oh, look at this. This is the anxiety showing itself again. Great. It's coming from a root, and we want to get to the root. So you have to be able to say, oh, look, there's anxiety. There's the energy of hopelessness in there. What the hell? I didn't even identify that before. So what we teach is, what are all the programs running, which means what are all the different energetic frequencies that have got activated and are showing up right now. And what you'll realize is there's always a surface level program. The surface level program, which is just the surface energy that you are aware of. That's the easy one. Oh, anxiety. Great. What else is in there? So we teach you how to identify. I never knew hopelessness was in there. What the heck? And then we go deeper and we go deeper and we connect the energetic dots to get to the core, the wound that actually got activated and triggered, boom, 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 all these energetic frequencies to start spinning in you. So when you go back and reverse and connect the dots, you're like, oh my God, I'm actually running the program of anxiety, which there's hopelessness. That was in my blind spot. Never knew I had that, because I don't feel hopeless at all. And then you go back and you find out energetically, how old are you? I'm 7. Why? Because I used to have this anticipation of dad coming home, because when he came home, it meant like war could be started. And I was afraid of what would happen of his interaction with mom when he got home. And I started that anticipating it when if I was playing instead of doing my homework, I knew I was going to get in trouble. It's something that simple. So that's where you go back energetically, you label, you identify the energies that are there in order to alchemize all of them and have them not be a part of who you are anymore. And you can just alchemize them, transform them into a higher energy. Remember, energy never dies. Those energies literally have to actually be transformed in order for them to not exist as that energy frequency anymore in your body. Anxiety, you'll have it forever. You'll suppress it, you'll avoid, you'll ignore, you'll do all these other things. Well, you could just learn the process of going in, what's actually the root cause of it. And then you can alchemize all of that. It means transform all of those energies into high frequencies. Once they're higher frequencies, it's not like they resort back. They're just higher frequencies now. True permanent healing.
I think that's what we're all looking for at some level, right? Is that true permanent healing, so that we don't have to make any go back at all, really, or take any steps back. I'm curious, you started that question talking about how if you could wave a magic wand and present your class to all physicians, have you thought about finding a way to rebrand it that could kind of like sneakily get into the medical industry, kind of just like slip it in there?
Yeah, I think, yes, I've definitely thought about that. And I think, and we are going in other ways, roundabout ways, to empower people themselves. And by empowering, when people really learn what this work is and they're willing to devote themselves to it, and they realize how free they are, what it is going to do, you're not going to convince the medical industry to be different right now. And that's okay. That's okay. There's no judgment there. And I don't blame them for where they are. They can't help that that's where they were indoctrinated, where they got educated. You know, it's not like they chose to become that. They don't know. So there's no judgment there. It is very unfortunate though. However, I've learned to empower and teach this to people, all of our clients, all of our group coaching, all the things that we offer at Masters of Self University. The more people that truly learn this work and they're like, oh my God, I feel invincible now. I feel powerful. There are addictions that were healed overnight. I mean this literally. People that have gone through our programs. The things that people heal from are just incredible if they're willing to learn and do the work, you know? So when you approach it from that angle and people themselves individually are empowered, you're removing the you know best, and in certain ways, of course they know more than you. They were educated in certain ways. So I want to point this out real quick, just because I think people come from irresponsibility often. When they know that they can be empowered and they can heal themselves, it does not mean that you'll never need. These physicians went to school for a very long time, and yes, they were taught a lot of things that's a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't mean they're not way more educated on the human body and the system and how it works and blah blah blah, right? So there's still that. I want to honor that in people who spend all that time devoting their lives to getting educated because they went into this to help to heal people. Like, let's honor that. However, when you realize how powerful you are and you start to learn and function from the level of energetics, and you learn the science of energetics, and you make profound, massive, permanent healing, transformational change like that in your own life, in your own body, in your own world, then you're not going to need that medical system so much, are you? And then it's going to be forced to change. So we all as a collective can quote unquote force change, not by change, picket, let's riot, let's do whatever. No, change yourself. It always goes back to mastering the self. Change yourself becomes so powerful that there are hardly any patients going to them anymore. They don't make money off of it. It forces them to become what you've already become. And that's how we create real lasting change. That's permanent change. That's permanent healing in a system. And it always stems from starting with yourself. You always have to change yourself first to make change in the macro. You're the micro. You are the change the world needs, but you have to realize to what degree you have to become that change yourself.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful way to put it. I mean, looking at it from that lens, right? If, I'm a relatively healthy individual, I've gotten to a point of understanding injuries, I work out, cognitively there. If I'm able to continue on this journey of meditation, energy work, breath work, there's not really going to be a need or a reason for me to ever go to the hospital, to ever get medication.
No.
So if you're able to just keep fixing that within yourself, whatever that is, I mean, staying calm, regulating your nervous system, all of these things, then there's not going to be a need for people to cure it. We don't have to sit here and say, oh, the medical industry is so bad and so evil.
Right.
Honestly, at some level, the reason they're so valuable is because they are providing a service.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is that they're providing a service to, well, I guess it's not really unfortunate, but the fact of the matter is that they're providing a service to people who are in a lower state of consciousness, a lower frequency. So we find a way to reach those people, right? It's not go after the medical industry. It's not go after the banks, go after these things. It's go after the individual and help them become a more enlightened and healed person in order for them to expand, so that they no longer need to rely on these third dimensional organizations to support their life.
You got it. Because all we're in is trapped in codependency. We are dependent upon them instead of finding our own power. And our own power does not mean you don't need the teachers or the physicians sometimes. In an emergency, I hope I have an ER. If I'm in a car crash, I hope that that's there to help me, if I have to go to the emergency room. But it's you don't function in this codependency, or helplessness dependency is even more accurate to say it, which is what these systems have created for us. That I'm so helpless and I don't know anything and I have to rely 100% on you. And there's no honoring back and forth because we come from separation consciousness. Oneness consciousness means if I go to a physician who's properly educated and I say, you're the expert. I don't pretend to be a physician. I didn't go that far in my education. I went a different path. So I honor that in you. But what the physician is supposed to honor is the fact that nobody knows your body better than you do. It is oneness. It is a unity. It is supposed to be teamwork back and forth. That, many, many, many years ago, I was sick. And when I went to the doctor, I said, I'm just going to give you steroids. So I said, you cannot give, I'm so sensitive to medicine. Steroids will kill me. And I basically was like, I will have really serious, I have to have something else. Like, you have to be able to help me in a different way. And of course, dismissed and treated not well and ushered out and given steroids. And I was so sick. I didn't know what else to do at that time other than take the damn steroids. And I ended up in the ER 3 days later because of the damn steroids. And I was furious. And I was like, thank you for this, because I know my body. You're the educated one. You're the physician. I don't ever pretend like you're not. However, I know my body better than you, period, end. And when I know my body, you're supposed to hear me. If you're supposed to be the professional, the expert, you're supposed to hear me tell you what I need to tell you about how my body functions. And then you can use your medical expertise to then give me what it is that I actually need in this scenario. And that's what's missing in how we function in our society, right? Because again, separation consciousness. So if we fast forward and we live in a more enlightened world and our medical systems function from the universal ways of oneness, like I'm going to try to get to happen before I die,
You got it.
then patients would go to their doctors, patients would go to their therapists, their coaches, and they would say, here's what's going on. Can you help guide me through this? And we would work together as a team to find out what's happening and how best to elevate you out of what you're experiencing right now. And that's functioning in oneness consciousness. It doesn't mean we'll never need physicians, but they won't look the way they do today. I'll tell you that. They'll look very different than what we know today. But we want them to be a part of our society, but not the way they've been for the last however many decades.
I think a powerful thing in there is about this ability to kind of meet people where they are.
Yes.
As opposed to just telling people what the answers are.
Yes.
And I've noticed that a lot with any coaches that I've tried hiring or have talked to or thought about hiring. There's a very distinct difference in a good coach, which will sit there and say, and who knows the way to get there, but is open to your concerns of like what you won't accept and what you're going to say no to.
Yeah.
Versus the bad ones that are like, you have to do it this way. You have to move this around to here. You have to. There's a very distinct energy shift between those two types of coaches. And I've seen a lot of power in the ones who are able to say, or at least tailor treatments or tailor pivots to the individual for what they
100%.
want to do. Because it's almost like their lens of this divine energy that they need to bring forth. And so,
yeah,
you're only there to kind of be like this guardrails, not exactly someone who pushes them down the road, which
exactly.
I know as well becomes a very difficult thing in the spirituality game. Once you start seeing all of your wounding and then you see wounding in other people, and you want to be very quick to call it out, and they are not going to be receptive to it, and you'll probably lose more friends than you'll gain.
Yeah.
So that's always a very fun situation to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and this kind of leads me to what I'm interested here is like, you were in the medical profession for a while, pediatrics. You did therapy. You didn't do therapy, but you did psychosomatics. Is that what it was?
I did. I specialized in mental, emotional, behavioral health in children and adults. I also was actually a baby specialist. I was a specialist working on the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, for where premature infants go. I specialized in that and babies in the first year of life. So those are all the different things that I specialized in and worked in when I still worked in the system.
The system, the prehistoric dinosaur system.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned that your catalyst out of it was whenever you were told, like, we're not here to cure people, we're here to treat people. We don't make money if we cure them.
Sick people make us money.
Sick people make us money. Sick people make us money. You might need to look in the mirror if that's what you're saying on a daily basis.
I know.
So you're in this framework, right? And you've kind of gone and created this Master of Self University. What did the process look like in between you launching Master of Self and leaving that old system? Like, what did that journey look like?
Yeah, it was rough.
If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth talking about.
Yeah, it was rough. I had to then I understood very quickly, first of all, it was suffocating in that system because I have always had, profound psychic abilities, and I always use those abilities, the stuff that I can see in people, boom, 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 when I'm working with them. And then here, let's work from there. I can just see everything. And I always have been able to. So I could see in my patients, for example, when I was still in that system, I could immediately see all of these things. I could see in their energy fields. I could see why they had cancer and what was creating the cancer, like why it was created to begin with, and what would need to happen for them to heal it. Like I can just see all of that. So you can't bring that into the old, what I call the old medical system, So it's hard. I had to dance around that stuff. But in going out on my own, when I was like working less there, and what am I here to really do was the question, because I didn't exactly know. And I am the way of surrender. I had to just surrender and allow the universe just flow with where the universe needed me to go in order for me to understand what it really was that I was here to do and what I was here to offer, because I didn't realize how big it really was. And it wasn't until I kept getting the signs of, okay, you need a team of warriors who are ready to help change the world. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm only one person. How much can I do? And that's when I started to get well, you're leaving that system. So you're going to train, educate, certify, teach coaches, all of this stuff. And you're going to have a large team of people that are helping the rest of the world really learn what their capabilities are, and they can heal themselves and blah, blah, blah. And it was, holy shit, you want to do that much work to start this whole thing? I did. I always listen. And I did. I mean, it's an incredible amount of work to create something like that. And I did it. And then I just thought, okay, I was going on a podcast and I thought I would mention it. And there were 3 people that were going to sign up to be certified coaches to go through my program. And I was like, this is awesome. This is perfect. There's 3. I'll focus all my time and attention. I'll make sure they get their certification. I'll be able to mentor them. And then there will be 4 of us doing this work. And then I'll figure out what to do with this corporation. And I'm telling you, with a couple of, they all flooded in, and they were like all signing up to become certified coaches. The universe was just like, no, this is what's going to happen. It wasn't, there was no, what are my goals? What are my business goals? And all that stuff that people, it was just, you're ready. And the world needs this desperately. We need them to come in and start to learn and elevate to become what they need to become, these mystical life coaches, in order to help people in this world. And they all just flooded in. I was like, whoa. And as soon as they flooded, I'm like, I guess I'll make this officially a corporation now. That's how it happened.
Wow.
Not that I didn't plan on doing that. I didn't think I was doing it that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I listen to the guidance of what my soul's here to do. I am the way of trust. I trust, my guidance in that way. I'm very connected psychically in very elevated ways. I just understand that's what the world needs. That's what humanity needs. And I am here in the way of selfless service. I'm here to serve. So that's how it came about. It just, here you go. And then it was okay. And now I'm going to manage all of this. And that's how I officially became Masters of Self University Corporation, not just, what I was doing. I've been, doing what I do individually for people all over the world for 25 years. But, the corporation is only a couple years old now.
Well, so then it's a great story, but I guess I'm curious from like an information standpoint now. From an information standpoint, how did you get this information that you're now talking about on this podcast, but then also dispelling in your courses? Like, did you learn from someone? Is it all intuitive? Where did this information come from?
I am the teacher for all of the information that I offer.
But like, where is it? Just like from your life experience? Like where is it coming from?
Life experience allowed me to master what I am here to teach for others. I had to walk my talk. But the universal ways of oneness, that's brand new to the world. That's never been offered to the world before. I channeled, and I will say, if anybody wants to read about where the universal ways of oneness come from, you can get the book. I started to channel the book, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, the morning after my Mason, he was my canine soul companion. And the morning after he died, and I'm just in grief and I'm crying, I got a nudge to go get my laptop. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like right now? My eyes are swollen shut. Looks like I'd done drugs for 3 days. Like they're all bloodshot. I
Yeah.
looked like a monster, I could barely see. And I'm just trying to breathe long and stop crying long enough to just breathe for a little bit and heal, be in my grief and honor my grief. And it was go get your laptop a second time. And I always trust and I know. So I did. And I came and I sat back down on the couch. And in a flash, it was, do you now see what his life really meant? And it just showed me a movie of every single universal way of oneness that he came here to show me and for me to be able to master before I was allowed to ever call myself a teacher of it, because I don't do that. And it all, like, words were put to it. How I live my life, what I've become in every way, every test of initiation, every challenge that, life had given me, even the childhood, very abusive, crazy childhood, all of it. Do you now see? And then the book just channeled, and I started channeling the book. And every way of oneness in sequential order just came through, and I channeled about every way. And so the Mason's Way, the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, taught by the spirit of an enlightened dog, he came here as my soul companion to show me what I am, what I'm here to teach, and to be my support while I became that teacher. And when his soul's mission was done, he left. And that's when the book came in print to be ready to be offered to the world. And it wasn't until the age of Aquarius officially started, 2023, where it felt like, okay, now the world's ready. This is a new age, and this is the new age of oneness consciousness. And that's when everything started to be more formally taught and offered to the world.
That's really fascinating, because it feels like it also ties into what I was talking about earlier in regards to that the idea I've been playing with, where to step away from the labeling of those emotions.
Yeah.
Right? You almost, although it was, let's say, spiritually guided, intuitively guided, it feels to me as though you were able to take that energy of grief, and if you just view it, if we take a step back and just view it as energy as a whole, you utilize that energy into a constructive force to create something, this book that is now the bedrock or cornerstone of this whole masterclass, and all these people that you've now been able to help certify or help heal or help.
Mm-hmm.
And then not to mention the spiderweb effect, or is it a spiderweb effect? Kind of like the butterfly effect. Yeah.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The butterfly
Yeah.
effect of everybody who they've helped, just from that energy of grief and channeling that into a creative outlet.
So the grief as an energy, it's an energy that's a human emotion. It's a really challenging one for a lot of people. Grief is extremely painful, as a lot of people know if they've been through it. But what I teach and what I teach people how to energetically do is to be with the grief and oneness, to honor the grief while being connected to your divinity. And that's the difference. I didn't use the grief as fuel. I don't do that. I connect by the way of connection. And it's an energetic process to learn what that means, how to actually do that. But as the way of connection, I am the way of connection to my energetic divine self, to my soul, literally, and beyond. I am the way of connection. When I energetically connect to that, that creates the divine spaciousness for the grief to process, for the grief to be there with no judgment, to not suppress, deny, ignore, pretend like you don't want to feel it, get it out of here. You embrace the grief with the energetic divinity that you are. And while I was doing that, that's what processes and heals the grief. And then the grief will only be there as long as it needs to be there. That's for any emotional pain that we go through when you learn this process that we teach. And the book was channeled because I was able to connect to my divinity instead of be connected to my grief. That's the difference. There's a detachment from grief, a connection to your divinity. So your source of everything is your divinity. And that divinity, that energetic divinity, your soul self, so to speak, is then what supports and loves and embraces and honors the grief while it's there. And that's what allows the grief to alchemize and no longer be a part of what you are. And then you just went through a temporary human experience. Mason's death, him leaving me, awful. Of course, that's part of life. But it wasn't trauma. And that's the difference. When we go through really challenging, painful times, it is only traumatic and awful and permanently damaging, so to speak, when we don't know how to connect to our divinity, to love ourselves through the trauma, the pain, the grief, whatever it is, the fear. And that's what I teach people how to do. And what my certified coaches teach people how to do is that. It is an energetic difference. We separate from it, so to speak. We detach is the better term. But it's there and we honor it. We don't make it go away. We love it into transcendence, literally, with the love that we are.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I have a little bit of I'm getting poked to ask you a little bit of a selfish or personal question.
Sure.
Because you mentioned earlier that you kind of can just like see the energy, you see what's in people's field.
Yeah.
So we've been sitting here now, it looks like for almost 2.5 hours. Do you have any advice or things you see about me that would help me level up my life?
Good question. Good question. Let me tap into your energy more.
Give you full permission, and I've been pretty
Thank you.
vulnerable on the podcast, so I'm open to
Thank
whatever
you.
you have to say.
So here's the first thing that I'm getting, and I sense is that I want to start with the beautiful aspect of the way that you really do try to live your life from a place of honoring, from a place of respect of others. You really do, you intentionally make the effort to be kind and to be loving to people. So your soul, because I can speak directly to your soul, is kind of telling you, job well done, keep going, like you're doing it. And the way that you bring information, it's coming from a place of this good-heartedness. Like you really do want to make some difference in the world. And of course you want to be successful and have the freedom and all the things that come with that. I mean, who doesn't? We have this human experience to live through. But you're being applauded and honored right now with the way in which you really try to conduct your life. Here's where you're getting nudged a little bit. Open yourself up to when you're hurt, to when somebody hurts your feelings, when somebody does something that isn't so loving. Open yourself up to what the deeper lesson is in it. Does that make sense to you? Go deeper with it when you go through an experience. Go a little deeper. Sometimes you have in the past tried to come from an elevated perspective, if that makes sense, and saying, that's okay, this happens. This is just life. Does that make sense to you? Like I'm summarizing and simplifying just for the sake of time.
Yeah, you're pulling
That
it off.
perfect. So that perspective, that attitude that you try to have is one where you're actually denying a deeper lesson and going much deeper into why you were experiencing that thing. They want you to learn more deeply why you experience certain things that you experience. The challenges that you have had, painful experiences that you have had, some of them are not fully healed yet. They're still in there, waiting to be exposed, waiting for someone else to come into your fields to actually hurt you and do something that is not kind to you. And it isn't just, but that's part of life. They want you to stop. That's a part of dismissiveness program that they want you to awaken to. It's a form of spiritual bypassing, although you don't do it to the severest degree by any means. But there's a dismissiveness there. So who dismissed you in your life when you were younger? Who dismissed you and made you feel not quite important? You've taken some of that energy on, and you've mistaken it for having a positive outlook on life instead of going deeper into, why is this here? Why did this person do that? Why does this hurt? Instead of, it's okay, this just happens. Hey, go with the flow kind of thing. Go more deeply into the pain when you have it. even if it's something minor, something subtle that was not kind. Like, what the hell was that? Pause and go deeper into what was that? And it isn't about overanalyzing. It's about, what is this here to show me? Who am I meant to become if I can learn how to embrace pain in my life, discomfort, in a different way? Does that make sense?
It does. There's a couple instances coming to mind. And my first thought would be for me to be more, let's say, almost, I want to say boundaried in a sense, but almost more acknowledging that a wrong was casted onto me in that
Good job.
situation.
Good job.
Instead
Good job.
of, because there's a situation I'm thinking of right now where it just happened. It's like, okay, he's processing his trauma. That's not a big deal. And so I kind of just took like a back seat to it. And a
Yeah.
different approach would be, hey, wait, no, that's not the way you should conduct yourself.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
shift I think that you're pointing at.
Yes, exactly. And learning from an elevated perspective, it doesn't mean that person isn't processing their trauma. That could be truth. That could be truth. However, do they have an excuse and a justification to project that onto you? No. And that is where we hold people accountable, but we do it from a loving space, not a judgmental space. It's learning how to step more deeply into what your power is and learn what my power is as a divine being, because that's what you're being guided to connect more deeply into. Find your divine power and what that means, and learn how to use that power. Divine power never is absent from the way of unconditional love. Never.
What's coming through here is to hold other people accountable.
Yes.
Hold people more accountable to their actions.
You got it. They need to be held accountable. That is the way of unconditional love, not just for you. Remember, this is oneness consciousness. It is unconditional love for them as well. To hold somebody accountable is a very loving thing to do. And it doesn't mean we're judging and putting them down and, screw you, you shouldn't have done. It's time out. It is okay that you're in pain. It is not okay that you treat me this way when you are in pain. Yes. There's difference there. That is what you're being guided to embrace, to see in your life where you don't step into your power in that way. And also to learn the divine lesson that power is never absent from unconditional love. If it isn't love, if love is not there, it isn't power, it's force.
Yeah, for sure. Because in those situations, I definitely, thinking back and feeling into it now, there's definitely a feeling of closing up as opposed to,
open and
stepping
expansive.
forth. Right. And to your point, you could definitely approach it in a more toxic, unhealthy way. Would be like a tyrannical, this is wrong, I'm going to chastise you, I'm going to punish you.
Got it.
Versus, look, I see you're coming at me like this. I know that's not your intention, but this is not how I want to be talked to. You have these issues. Let's breathe. Let's do the other things to. You got it. When you bring this information to me. You got it. It's okay that you're frustrated or, whatever today. It isn't okay that you project onto me your frustration. And let's talk about that and how not to do that. I can support you in your frustration. I will not be the doormat for your frustration. That's the difference. That's power. That's the power. Is you can feel the love in it. And there's no judgment, but that boundary comes from love. And that's what you're being guided to step more into. Yeah, because that literally just happened yesterday. There you go. Wow. Rachel. There you go. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I mean, just thank you personally, and then thank you for your presence on the podcast. This was a beautiful conversation. This feels like a very resonant and peaceful spot to wrap this up. So let the audience know how they can find you, how they can get your information. I'm going to put your links down on the bottom. So reference those at will. And if you have any final messages for the audience, throw that in there as well. Yeah. So thank you. So you can go to mastersofselfuniversity.com. That's the best way. Of course, all the links I think you'll have, Clayton, for if you want to follow me on social media and stuff. But go to mastersofselfuniversity.com and jump on Amazon and check out Mason's Way, the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. You can learn about those ways of oneness in that book. And I think just to remind everybody, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's been such an honor to be in your space with you, and I appreciate you having me today. Thank you for all the listeners.
tuning into this, remember that you have the divine power. The power is already inside of you. It doesn't mean you're connected to it. It's time for us to grow up and mature in our divinity and learn where we need to be educated, where we need to embrace a level of elevation that we might not be privy to up until now, and to take that very seriously. And the reason to take that seriously, to invest in yourself and the resources to get you there to become way more elevated, because the world needs you to become that. We all need you to be the highest version of you that you can achieve, and not coming from a place of ego, coming from a place of true unconditional love, of divine power. That is the truth of what you are. To face your shadow self and heal that, because that is the only way to become as elevated as you can. You have the power. Make the choice to do it, because this world needs you to see how magical and mystical and powerful you actually are. That is what sets you free in this lifetime. Not systems, not rules, not laws. That is what actually sets you free. And I want for everybody to experience the level of freedom that I live my everyday life in. On that, thank you. I appreciate you listening.
So beautiful. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel Fiori.
Thank
Rachel
you.
Fiori, everybody. Go check out her book. Go check her out in her masterclass. And if you don't check her out there, then we'll definitely have to have a conversation about it when we all see each other in the 6th dimension.
Oh, I love it.